Welcome once again. Thank you for joining me. I am Big Bo, and you are listening to the Big Bo Podcast. I am honored to be your host, your guide into this excursion into the paranormal, the unknown, the strange, and I'm honored to have you with me. And this is going to be really interesting. We're picking up on the second part of the interview with Constantine. And, it was a little bit long, so we split it up into two pieces, trying to make it a little bit easier to listen to. So I hope that works out for everyone. Please let me know. Give me some feedback on the way that we decided to do this. Now, again, he's picking up right where we left off. He's getting into his visions of the apocalypse. And then, of course, the second half of the interview, we get into the Stairway to Heaven, as I like to call it, his experience that he had there. In between, though, something really interesting happens, which is while we're recording this, we talked about shadow people before and the experiences that he had with shadow people, but he actually has an experience with shadow people while we were recording this. So that was something that was really wild. So once again, thank you so much for joining me and letting me be your guide here. And this is the second part of the interview with Constantine. So that's in the book of Revelations, right? Like the blowing of a trumpet. And
yeah, I think so.
Now, I guess I could look this up later, but I don't have it handy. Mostly because, I tried to go through the book of Revelations before, but it's difficult reading. It's very confusing. It's almost like, well, anyway, yeah, it's confusing. A lot of symbolism there, and I'm convinced that unless you have like a doctorate in theology and you've made a list of biblical symbolism, you're just going to get lost. Like it's just hard to go through. But having said that, doesn't it reference that trumpet being blown a specific amount of times?
I really am not sure.
Okay. I think it does. But you're saying, like, you felt this when this trumpet blew, like, well, first of all, I'm really curious to know. So this sounds like old school World War I trench warfare. Like you're dug in a trench.
Yes.
Okay. And you peek out over this trench and you say the field. Like what? Like was it just complete darkness? Was there a city? Was there something between you and wherever it was that you were charging? Or was it like open grass, or could you not tell?
You could see in the distance what looked like rubble, like burning buildings had been toppled in the distance. But between what lighting we had out on that field in front of us, which just looked like a dirt pasture, and whatever's making those noises, it was pitch black.
Okay. Do you have any kind of sense of where you were?
The only thing I do know is that where I was at, I could see the end of one end of the trench, and it was a long, I can't describe it any other way than a stone fence. A stone wall. I'm talking like Pharaoh's Giza, Egypt kind of stones. The wall was 40, 50 feet tall, and it went into the darkness, and it looked like it was the edge. I think when I described it to someone before, it was like the wall around Jerusalem.
Do you think that it was Jerusalem?
Yes.
Man, that's some heavy stuff.
Yeah, I was in an 8-foot deep trench leading an army of hundreds of thousands of humans against an unknown foe outside the gates of Jerusalem.
Like sometimes I'm just like, why can't I get a simple interview? Like somebody that sees ghosts and that's it. You know, like we're talking about visions of the apocalypse here. You realize, right? Like, I mean,
Oh yeah.
like this isn't okay. All right. Now you're saying to me though that you hear this trumpet and you didn't want to go.
I think it was something we discussed earlier that I'm a I'm a passenger, and so you're overlaying the information that I know or I believe I know from the character I'm writing with, and then my personality right now. And my personality right now is like, no, we're not going that way. And the person I'm riding along with, that's 20 years older than me, he doesn't have a choice, and he's not afraid.
So you, Constantine, are seeing this through the eyes of not necessarily you, but whoever it is that is in this situation. Could
No,
be
it's me.
okay. So you believe it's you.
I know it's me because of the history that was given to me in the data dump.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Okay, so I'm just like, man, where do I go with this? There's so many ways to go with this. It's like, okay, so you're a passenger on this.
Yes.
So you, Constantine, in the present time, or the time that you're experiencing this, you're taking this whole thing in, and you hear this, did you say growling?
That's the only way I could, like the gnashing of teeth. It was the scariest sound I've ever heard in my life.
And that's across the field.
In the darkness.
Was this, I mean, like, was it like a was it like a roar, or was it like a dog barking? Like, how loud was this?
Deafening.
Okay. So bone chilling, because my bones are chilled right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deafening until the trumpet.
You're experiencing this as yourself. And as you're taking this in, you, Constantine, are like, there's no way in hell I'm crouching across this field. But the vision that you're experiencing doesn't have that fear and is ready to go and charges across.
He's driven, and he's chivalrous. What he's doing is noble, and he believes it.
Okay.
And he knows he's going to die.
Oh, that's comforting. Okay. So you charge across the field.
No. I leave the trench, and that's when I woke up.
Okay. Do you remember what year was this? Do you remember what year you experienced this?
I can't remember a year exactly. What I do remember is I'm roughly 20 years older than I am now.
Okay. So you're in your 40s. So you were in your 20s.
No, you're going the other way.
No.
I'm in my 40s now. And the person I was riding with was in his, I'd say, late 50s, early 60s.
Okay, no, I'm saying your actual, with the time you experienced this, not like when it was happening.
Oh, no, this was just a couple years ago.
This was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So.
Late 30s.
Okay.
I think I was 39 when I saw this vision, and I took it as I was in my late 50s, early 60s, so roughly 20 years.
Okay, so let's talk about this 20-year data dump.
Oh, it was harsh.
You're in your late 30s when you experience this. The future that happens is 20 some odd years. What happens in those 20 years?
It was really personal. I didn't necessarily see everything. just like you wouldn't if you were experiencing it. Like today, we can read highlights of what's going on in Europe, but we don't know it because we're not in Europe.
Okay.
And so that's how the data dump worked. Like it was a real life experience data dump. And I remember seeing the stock market. It dropped so much that it triggered the automatic shutdown for 2 or 3 straight days. And that me and my wife and kids were at my parents' house, and there were other friends and family there, and we were all scared. And we were watching the news and seeing that it was like the third straight day that this had happened. And then we had known about civil unrest occurring already, kind of like rioting in the streets. So something had happened to the economy and it put people on edge. And that's when we were attacked. And I lost most of my family right then. The house was shelled by our artillery.
The stock market itself was shut down for like 3 straight days?
Yeah. It was tanking. Like in 29, it was tanking. And the automatic stop gaps were clicking in. And so trading would end after just minutes. Stock market had opened at 8 a.m. By 8:05, it was already shut down for the day because it had dropped 5, 6, 7% of its value for 3 straight days.
Okay.
And that's all they could talk about was that and civil unrest.
Civil unrest. Okay, and you're saying that in this vision that your parents' house was shelled
My
by
parents' entire neighborhood.
what, like artillery, like mortar fire?
Artillery fire, yeah. We couldn't see where it was coming from, but you could hear it whistling in, just like in a movie. And then, like, the wall opposite of me in the living area just disappeared. And I remember getting blown backward into the wall behind me. And I see the bodies of my family. And ironically, that television's still going. It's flickering, but their news report's still on talking about unrest. And then that's when the next shell hits. And I don't know what happened. I kind of woke up in some rubble. And I remember seeing a cousin I haven't seen in, decades was there and was like, come on, we got to get out of here. And I was looking for my wife and kids and my dad and everyone else. And they're gone. They're all gone.
Okay.
Everything around me's in rubble and burning.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's only slightly disconcerting. The United States is being attacked, obviously.
No, we're at civil war.
Okay. Okay.
That was clear in the memory. We were fighting ourselves. The United States was divided into 5 or 6 factions, and most of them were just trying to protect themselves. And other factions were fighting other factions. And I guess they were able to get a hold of some of the military equipment the United States government has. And so they were using artillery and tanks on one another. That's kind of what I was able to piece together. Roughly 2020, 2021.
The year?
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to tell you that given the current, this show we don't really talk about politics, right? We don't really like get into that too much. But what I would tell you is that given the current political climate, that's kind of scary because a lot of people on different sides on both sides of the prominent ideological divide have talked about. I mean, I remember 2015, 2016, California, I think Oregon, Washington. And I mean, it didn't really gain a lot of traction, but there were people that were organizing to put on the ballots in those states secession, basically. So, you know, given the context of this vision, I mean, that's kind of scary.
Yeah, I remember. I do remember something about great migrations. There were like refugees. People were Thousands of people were walking down the interstate trying to get to the next faction because they were leaving where they were at because they were being persecuted and there was starvation. I don't remember much about disease, but starvation.
Wow. Okay.
And this goes on for years. In the data dump, I recall that it was extremely hard living, and somewhere along the lines, I was able to get toward a faction that valued my whatever I could uh, add to their leadership, and it helped me to move up as
So,
a military person, a soldier.
so some people would say you're crazy. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're crazy, but like, because what you're pointing out here is basically you're saying. Now, this is the thing too to keep in mind, and which is why I would not so easily discount what you're saying. Is that these different groups have tried to put forth this secessionist idea. So, it's not completely out of the realm of possibilities, And the fact that you've had these sort of paranormal interventions makes it hard to say, well, that's just what this guy is dreaming up. I mean, you've said that clearly did not feel like a dream. You were just a passenger in this thing. So, yeah, I'm going to tell you, I mean, it kind of makes me want to go build a bunker. Like, I don't have the money to build a bunker, but I mean, I got a shovel. I can get a hold of some concrete, maybe get a hold of some preppers. They can give me some tips, This whole thing kicks off with this civil unrest leading to civil war. And eventually you have this vision of being a part of an army that's charging the gates of Jerusalem to take on some sort of supernatural foe.
Yes.
And the sense that you got was that you were basically leading this charge for whatever faction that you were a part of.
We were doing it for something bigger than that, whatever that trumpet was.
Some people might say that's a self-serving vision that you had that you were in charge of this.
I could see that.
But that's just your experience.
That's just what I saw, and I'm stating it as factually as I can. And this is the first time I've talked about it publicly. I've discussed it with family and some close friends, but you don't normally, normal people don't talk about things like this. And if they do experience it, then they just kind of, shove it really deep where no one else can see it and move forward with their lives.
I mean, I'm just going to tell you, like, my sense is I think it's possible. I mean, look, we're talking about the future, right? So we don't know. But, I mean, do you think it's possible? Do you feel like it was you because of the appearance of your body? Or do you think it's possible that maybe you were seeing this and feeling this through someone else's eyes?
It felt real in the sense that after the data dump, I felt the pain. I was doing what I was doing because of the pain. It wasn't about heroism. It wasn't about glory. It was retribution.
Okay. You're saying these visions don't happen that often?
Oh, they happen very rare.
Okay. So we've got basically lucid dreaming, shadow people. a family that's familiar with paranormal experiences. So, obviously, then, these paranormal experiences have kept happening as you got older, right?
I think they've kind of intensified over the last at least 5 years. They've gotten a lot worse.
Okay. When you were 11 or 12, that's the first one that you remember happening. What's the next most impactful experience that happened?
Saw a demon again.
Okay, hold on. All right, you know what? Because you realize most people don't see demons, right? So
Yeah, yeah. I know. I shouldn't have seen one, and I've seen two.
okay, so and man, I just gotta ask, like, I mean, I know we kind of talked about it, but are you involved in the occult at all? Like,
No,
never have been.
no. Matter of fact, I smoked a joint in high school, and other than that, I've never used an illegal drug.
Really?
I ra- I rarely drink. I come from Native American family, and the stereotype is that Native Americans are drunk. So I took that personal. I stayed away from alcohol. I do not like to lose control. Absolutely do not. So I don't do anything that's mind altering, so to speak.
So, have you ever participated? I mean, I'm not trying to tie these things. I'm just trying to get a sense. Like, have you ever participated in like the sweat lodges or the dancing or anything like that?
No, no, never been to a sweat lodge. I've been to powwows, but I don't know how to dance. I've never seen or done peyote. I've never been to a spirit cooking.
Okay.
Nothing like that.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's good. That's good. Um, Spirit cooking is going to be a different show. I got a feeling. I don't know. Have you been to the Facebook page for the show?
Yes, actually, right before we went on.
Okay. Um, I love and appreciate everyone that has liked my Facebook page, but I will tell you, I've got some interesting Facebook page likes, and I've had some interesting messages sent to me. And I have no doubt that the comments on the show, when I put this on Facebook, I fully expect to get some interesting comments. Um, and this is the thing too. Look, just a comment about the show. Look, I get it. Most podcasts, and so far we're going on almost an hour and a half. I did not intend for that to happen, but I also didn't know we were going to talk about shadow people and visions of the apocalypse. So I'm just kind of going with this. We're going to try to cap it at 2 hours, okay? For ease of consumption, we might divide this up into like hour-long segments, because people have short attention spans. So, just so you know, and so that the audience knows, I'm not trying to hold anything back on anybody. But I know that not everyone likes this format, right? Most podcasts are 20, 30 minutes. Maybe. Most podcasts, honestly, are maybe like 15 minutes. But, I don't have people on this show that have little things to say, which is why I was kind of joking earlier, that, why can't I just get somebody that just saw a couple ghosts? Like, I can just make my life easy. So having said that, never been a part of any crazy occult rituals, anything like that. This stuff just happens to you. So,
Unfortunately, yeah, it just happens, usually out of nowhere.
okay. Second time you saw a demon, like you weren't dreaming, wasn't a vision, like you when you were 11 or 12 years old, you're telling me you saw a full-on demon. How old were you when this happened?
It was about 5 years ago, and I
Okay.
was fully awake.
So this was recent.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me what happened. Like when did what was going on? Like how did just tell me about the experience.
Okay. I'll try to make it brief. Um,
No, don't worry about making it brief. I want to know. Listen, we're past making it brief. Making it brief happened a long time ago. That ship has sailed. I want to know about this experience. So,
okay. I was living and working in Central Texas about 5 years ago. I was over at a buddy's house, and we were watching. We rented a couple of movies on. I think it was a Friday night after work, and so I headed back to my place. I pulled up in front. Didn't
okay,
want to wake my roommates up.
let me ask you, like, what were the movies that you watched?
I don't even recall.
Okay, but it wasn't anything demonic. It wasn't like,
Oh no, I don't usually. I don't watch demonic movies, so to speak, or anything having to do with religion generally, because I already feel like I've invited something in and didn't mean to.
that's
I'm
fair.
already I'm already living with this, and I don't want to bring anything else in.
Okay, I was just trying to say, like, any external influence. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I pull up in front of the house. I've got a cheeseburger and fries and a Sonic drink, and I pull up and finished a conversation with someone on the phone. It's probably about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I decided I was going to sit there in the car and finish my cheeseburger. And I remember I took a couple of bites, and just out of the peripheral, I happened to be looking down at my phone. I saw something in front of the car, and I look up. Again, remember it's 1 o'clock, so it's dark, but there's street lights. There's one 40 yards in front of me at a bend, and then there's one right next to me. And so, for the most part, I could see where the bend of the road was. There's a large tree, and what I saw moving was crawling up the tree, but not like an animal. Think of a tree with its canopy of leaves. It was crawling on the outside of the leaves, but this thing was enormous.
And you could
10.
see it. You could see it fully made out. It wasn't like a walking shadow, like the shadow people.
No, I saw the whole thing. It looked very, very similar to what I saw outside my window, but more developed. It was 10, 12 feet tall. It crawled very effortlessly to the top of that tree that was probably 40 feet tall, the tree. And it had a cape, like drapes, that were all the way to the ground. And I remember that was red, like a dark colored red. And the creature got to the top. Its two front hands, I guess, for lack of a better term, were hanging onto the top of the tree. And that's when its head turned and it looked at me, and I saw those same red piercing eyes. And I froze. And that's when I noticed in my peripheral that there were things moving outside of my car. Like not on the street where I was parked, but up along the houses, however many 10, 15 yards up to the front of the houses, up and down, they were moving. And they reminded me of hyenas.
Okay, so these were separate creatures.
Dozens of them.
I mean, you say this thing was wearing a cape. Was it like clothing, or was this a part of it?
It was a part of it. It came off its back and it went all the way down to the ground, and like it was still on the ground. And he was at the top of what I estimate to be a 40-foot tree.
Okay, and how far away? How far away was all of this?
40 to 45 yards in front of my car.
Okay, so half a football field.
Yeah.
And you saw these separate creatures. Do you have an idea of? And this thing you're saying was like 10 feet tall.
Oh, yeah. He was enormous. I was in a Nissan Juke, and it just made me feel like he was bigger than the car.
How big were these hyena-like creatures?
They really did remind me of a hyena. They were probably about that size. 40, 50 pounds, probably a couple feet long, a couple feet tall.
Now, you'd said that.
They were laughing.
Okay. So you see these hyena creatures. What happens now?
They're circling the car. And then, like in Harry Potter, all the hope, joy, everything disappears. The car feels like it drops 50 degrees and goes sub-zero instantly. I can't move. I can't breathe. I just start crying. I'm not trying to. I can't stop myself. And if I had any urine in me, I would have went on myself.
So these hyena creatures are surrounding the car.
Yeah, they never got closer than maybe 10 or 12 feet. They didn't get close enough that I could have reached out and touched them, but they were literally circling the car like they were waiting for me to get out.
But the main creature, did it, I guess, stay on the tree?
It stayed on the tree staring at me. The two red eyes piercing me and never stopped, and I never stopped looking directly at them. Except for subtle glances at the mirrors where I could see these things were completely around my car.
Okay. And you're saying this affected you psychologically?
It affected me in every way you can be affected. My senses even dulled.
So you're saying that like all hope was gone?
Yes.
Now, for the previous, let's call it demonic experience, we kind of talked around a little bit, but you'd said that you'd felt cold. And I'd said that, okay, trying to see, if it was like a dip of temperature in the room. Did the temperature change, or did you have that similar sense of loss of heat?
No, it sucked the air out of the car.
Now, what do you mean?
I mean, it felt like it literally vacuum sucked all the air out of the car, my lungs included. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't draw air in. I couldn't push air out. It was completely hopeless.
Now, this sounds frightening. Were you frightened?
I think I would have liked to have been frightened. I was worse than that. I was petrified.
Do you think, were you in shock?
I was probably beyond shock. I think I was going to die.
Did you get that sense that...
I honestly wondered if I was still alive.
So after they surround the car, this thing is staring at you. You can't move, and I'm guessing you feel like you can't think. You're not even sure if you're alive at that point. You're experiencing this feeling that you can't even describe as fears, except to say that you were literally petrified. What happened after that?
Well, for my best estimates, until this episode ended, I was roughly out of, I guess, reality for about 25 minutes.
So you're saying you sat in the car with all this happening for about 25 minutes?
Yeah. My burger, my fries were cold. The ice had melted in my drink. And I literally looked at the clock and could tell it had been 20, 25 minutes since I had pulled up and began trying to eat and first saw this. They just kept circling, cackling. Not like a hyena cackle, like the Wicked Witch of the East kind of cackle, all of them. Hundreds of voices.
Now, do you... voices?
Yeah.
So you heard them?
Oh, I could hear them cackling. They were just laughing at me. And it was almost like they were taunting me to come out.
But there was
but
no
the
way...
big thing never moved.
But there's no way you were getting out of that car.
I'm not getting out of that car. And the large thing sat there and stared at me the entire time, and I stared right back, petrified. There wasn't any breeze, and If you've ever been to Texas, Central Texas, that's weird in itself. There's
Sure.
always wind there. And then finally, I remember I didn't see it. It's just like they dissipated. The hyena creatures dissipated, were gone. The big creature slowly moved his head back around to what I guess was the front of his body. And then he crawled very strangely in my mind, kind of over the top of the tree and around the other side where I couldn't see. And I saw the cape or whatever it was slowly work its way over. And then I could breathe. I was shaken.
So
I was scared to death, but I could breathe.
okay. So do you think that everything that you described, the feeling of the air getting sucked out of the car, this feeling of being petrified, all hope gone, do you think that this was a reaction to what you were seeing, or was this something that was being done to you by these entities?
The big creature was doing it. And I can't describe it because I didn't hear anything. But when I say all hope was lost, I just had this overwhelming feeling to kill myself. I mean, if I could have just laid down in the middle of the road right there and died, I would have.
And so you feel like this is something that this creature was projecting on you.
Yeah.
Now,
He was trying to influence me, either to get out of the car and let the hyenas get me, or to do it myself.
now, do you think that this was the same creature that you saw when you were younger?
I don't know. But I think given my age when I was younger, that is what I think I lacked the understanding and the perceptive skills and the language to understand everything that happened to me at that time. And so I'm left with a memory that is not complete.
Okay.
It may have happened the exact same way, but because I was so young, I didn't see it. This time, like I said, it was 5 years ago. I was in my mid-30s. I'm 100% sure I saw what I saw. I'm 100% sure of the encounter, and I'm 100% sure of the time frame that it took.
Gotcha.
And that creature wanted me.
So, man, all right. So what'd you do after that?
I called a friend. I couldn't quit weeping. And he prayed for me. And that gave me the strength to get my butt out of the car and get inside the house.
Well, I guess it's good that you know people that I guess keep vampire hours.
Yeah, really.
Okay. So basically, after this is over, you reach out to a friend of yours. He prays for you. You get out of the car. And I guess after that, you just kind of shake off the feelings of what happened.
No, I got out of the car and I ran. I ran full speed into the house.
Okay. That's reasonable.
I didn't look anywhere else other than where I was going. I didn't look back, didn't look sideways. I looked straight ahead, unlocked the door, went in the house, locked it, went straight to bed. Didn't go to the bathroom, didn't do anything. I went straight to bed, pulled the covers over my head, and just laid there until I went to sleep.
Wow. Obviously, we can't cover your entire lifetime, at least not on this show right now. But I do want to get to, because not all of these experiences are negative. Some of them sound fairly benign, like the shadow people. And I'm going to tell you right now, you are the calmest person ever that I've ever talked to about shadow people when they've talked about shadow people. So That still kind of blows my mind.
I know you're wanting to segue into the what'd you call it, Stairway to Heaven,
Yeah.
but as an aside, I've been seeing. I'm sitting in my car in my garage right now. My kids are asleep. I didn't want to wake them up, and I didn't know how long this would take. But every time we talk about shadow people, I see movement around me.
Oh my God, that is so freaky.
Ironically, we talked about all sorts of other things and nothing. But when we talked about them earlier, and I told you I never heard of that term before, I saw one outside the passenger door toward the rear. And then now something moved across. There's 6 inches between the back of this car and the garage door, and a man just walked by the back glass
As we were speaking.
as we were speaking when you brought shadow people back up. So yeah, I have locked the doors, and I don't know if that's going to do any good, but I feel a little bit better about it.
Oh my gosh, that is so crazy.
I wasn't scared till you said something about it. Now I'm scared.
Sorry? I don't know. Like, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So I guess they can hear me.
That is so crazy. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for mentioning that, by the way. I guess I'm glad that you don't have your video on, because I don't know what I would have done if I would have happened to seen that. Were these full bodied? Like, can you see through them?
No, I'm actually sitting inside the car with the doors closed, so I'm looking out the windows. I couldn't see from mid chest down because of the orientation of the car. But they were very clear shadows, and they're coming through the garage door, which is closed.
Are they solid? Like,
oh yeah, they're not opaque. You can't see through them. When they're there, they're there.
That is so crazy.
I'm guessing they're apparitions. I don't know.
All right, well,
but they're full bodied.
We're gonna have to do another episode on shadow people. That's just
we're gonna have to do that one in the daytime though.
Done deal. Okay. Now, let's talk about this Stairway to Heaven situation. That's what I like to call it. In the interest of full disclosure, though, you're not like terminally ill, but you have had some health problems.
I have a chronic illness. It is terminal. It will eventually kill me, but right now it's just categorized as chronic. I am disabled. But in this particular instance, I may or may not have passed on to the next plane.
Okay. Now you're going to need to explain that. Okay. All right. What were you doing when this happened?
I was trying to sit my fat butt down in the recliner, kind of a recurring theme in my life. But I was having what I call an episode with my health, chest pains, lightheadedness, very dizzy. And so I was just trying to make it to the chair and not fall on the ground. And as I went into the chair, I fell into the chair.
Okay.
And so I was laying on my right side, kind of across it, and my head was hanging off the right-hand side of the recliner. So I guess I was sitting in orientation-wise, I was laying in it appropriately, facing the right way. It's just that I was kind of sitting on, my butt would have went down on the left armrest, and then I fell over on my right side.
Okay, so you were trying to sit down, but you ended up laying down.
Yep, I ended up falling down.
Okay, now did you knock yourself out, or did you just...
No, there wasn't anything to hit.
Okay, so what happened after that?
I didn't know I fell. I knew I was falling. And then the next thing I know, do you want the objective or do you want what I actually think happened?
Okay. So let's go with the objective, and then we'll
Okay.
go into your
I
interpretation.
was suddenly in a brightly perfect sunshiny day.
So you go to sit down, you don't end up sitting down, you end up falling down, and you didn't like bounce your head off of anything, but you don't really actually remember hitting was a couch or a chair?
It was a recliner.
It was a recliner. Okay.
Rocking recliner.
So as soon as you have the sense of falling,
Boom. I'm in peace. Boom, I'm in peace.
Okay.
I'm outside and it's bright, sunshiny, and perfect weather for me. It's not too warm. It's not too cold. There's no breeze. There's no rain clouds. It's just beautiful sunshine. And that's the first thing you notice because it's like the sun's 50 times bigger than it's ever been before. And I'm on a path that's white. It's not concrete. It looks like it's marble. And that's when I noticed that it goes straight ahead and then it turns, it's a long path, but it's got turnoffs like off left and right. And they go to these mausoleum style buildings that are enormous.
Mausoleum, or you mean like Greek buildings? Mausoleum has dead people in it.
That's kind of what it reminded me of, at least the first one.
Okay, so it's giant marble facade.
Right.
Okay.
Its structure, the way the overhang was on it, was just like a mausoleum at a cemetery.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then I decide that's where I'm going to go, and I walk up to it, and it's just the most beautiful art you've ever seen. And some of these pieces are as big as a skyscraper. The building is bigger than any human could ever build or conceive of.
So like we're talking like 100 stories.
Yeah, or more.
Okay.
And then some of the art was normal, like you'd get a caricature at the fair, some of it would be like that. And they were different mediums. And they were so beautiful and so brilliant and so perfect, I can't describe it. It's not anything we've ever seen before.
So with the art you're talking about, that was on these marble walls?
Right.
Okay.
And it's not anything I've ever seen before. It's not like, I saw the Mona Lisa and the Scream and, things like that. No, this is art I've never seen before. And it's puzzling, but gorgeous.
Okay.
And so I take the time to walk down this building, and I'm going to say it's half mile long, maybe a mile long. And I'm just soaking in this art. And I get to the end, and just like the beginning, you turn the corner, and there's another walkway. It goes back out into another long walkway with other buildings off the side. And I check out a few of the buildings. Mostly I'm looking at architecture, and it's every classical architecture you can imagine. I saw Japanese, I saw Chinese, I saw Persian, Greek. They're everywhere. And some of the buildings are small, like maybe a normal cottage, all the way up to like the building I just saw that was thousands of feet tall. And that's when I started noticing that there's other people around me. They're not engaging me in any way, but they're all blissful. You can see it in their face. They're just glowing. They're so happy.
Okay.
I start moving to my left, and then that's when the particular path I'm on, it's like it ran down the middle of a valley as far as you could see for thousands of miles. And there are these enormous, jagged mountains with just huge structures on them that are perfect. And they're as far as the eye can see.
So there were structures on this mountain.
These series of mountains, yeah.
Now, was it the same architecture as the buildings that you'd seen before?
No, they're all different. Some of them are things I'd never noticed before.
Okay.
I'd never seen. So I start walking toward that valley, and I see a marble building that looks like it's official, and I feel like I feel this urge to go into this building, and I don't know, like get a bus pass or something. I don't know. I feel the urge and the need to go in there, so I go in and I look around, and it's like I'd been there before, but I hadn't,
Okay.
and I didn't really know what to do, so I started walking out, and that's when it looked like a druid. He was tall, 8, 9 feet tall. He was wearing a robe with a hood that covered his head, and
But he was
he put his
humanoid.
he put his hand out flat palmed and said, "Stop! You're not supposed to be here." And then he bumped me, not like shoved me, but leaned forward and bumped me with that flat palm, and I was back in my body, laying awkwardly on that recliner,
Okay.
and that was a little over 2 hours.
Huh. Now, when you say it was a little bit over 2 hours, did you have a sense of time while this was going on, or did you just...
I was there minutes. However many minutes it took me to walk that half mile or mile and turn the corner and walk into the official building and walk back out. I got the sense that I was there for 10, 15 minutes at most.
So it didn't feel like very long. Like while you were in the experience, it didn't feel very long. But when you got up, I guess you saw the clock or your phone or something that...
Yeah, I saw the clock in front of me. There's one on the television stand in front of me. And I knew it had been over 2 hours since when I started having my problems, medical problems. And for all that, none of that triggered anything in my mind. The only thing that I could tell you I felt was that I had been cheated.
So while you were there, did you feel calm and peaceful and at bliss?
I can't even describe it. I felt perfect. My legs didn't hurt. My sickness wasn't bothering me. I wasn't cold or hot. I just felt the warmth of the sun. Every breath I took was like a complete, perfect breath of air.
So when you got back, you said you felt cheated because I guess you didn't want to leave.
I wasn't expecting to leave.
Did you have any sense when you were there that you needed to come back or that you wanted to come back, or did you
No.
not even think about it?
Didn't even cross my mind. Didn't cross my mind. Where's my wife? Where's my kids? Where's my friends? Where's my family? None of that. I didn't care. Didn't even think about it.
So obviously when you came out of this, you were like, I want to go back.
Yeah.
So why don't we do this? I want to give you my thoughts about that, and then you can tell me what you think. How about that?
Okay.
I'm not trying to interpret this for you. I just want to I don't want to interrupt your thoughts about it because I got a feeling it'll spark some other thoughts. You know, there's a lot of things because we talked about the different theories of why this stuff happens, right? Demonic, are you just accessing different dimensions, different frequencies? Is your brain just kind of wired in a different way so that you can access these things, And however it's wired, we talked about your academic experiences earlier. Apparently it works pretty efficiently. So it might be that your synapses are just crossing in a different way from other people, you know? But it's possible, to me, you unconsciously accessed a different dimension, a different sort of a different realm of space and time. And maybe, your ability to access these frequencies influence that. Or, and some people might say that this is a different dimension anyway, maybe you did get a glimpse of heaven or of a heaven. There's different thoughts on how many heavens there are, right? Like, there's different thoughts that, that God and the angels are separate, right? That God is at this highest level, then you have the angels, and then you have different levels of angels. And then you have just, like sort of a middle plane where different spiritual entities exist on this sort of lower level. And the people that think about these things, that's where a lot of people think that a lot of the psychic activity takes place, is on these middle planes. But, it's possible. We can't discount it. That for whatever reason, you were given a glimpse of a plane of heaven. What do you think?
I don't really know. It, again, I was marveling at everything around me, but I was a passenger. I couldn't manipulate what was going on. I couldn't bring myself back. I know from my medical history that I may have had a small heart attack. My heart gets weak at different stages for any number of reasons, and my pulse slows way down. So it's usually what causes my dizzy spells. My heart can't quite keep up with my physical activity. And so obviously I may have died and experienced this, or I may have been hallucinating because I wasn't getting enough oxygen. I don't know. I know how medical science is going to explain it, but
sure,
whatever it was, I could not bring myself out. I couldn't will myself out of that, and I didn't want to. If anything, I wanted to will myself further into it.
But there wasn't like a white tunnel or...
No tunnels, no white lights at the end, nothing like that. It was, I feel like I'm falling. I know I'm falling. And then boom.
So basically, you think that you could have had a near-death experience?
Yes. I think I died briefly.
Man, that's such a trip.
And I think that's why the druid entity was like, "Hey, you, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be here." And then he bumps me and knocks me back into my body.
Now, this druid, or this entity you described, is looking like a druid, or druid-esque.
No.
Other than his... No?
Yes.
What?
Druid-esque. Okay. He's druid-esque.
Okay. Other than being very tall, like, did you see his face?
Yeah, he looked like a middle-aged man. Human.
Okay.
But we were all wearing light-colored clothing. There were different shades. I could see yellows and blues and pinks. And he was wearing a slightly darker gray, but it was a full-length robe with a hood, and his arms were covered. But he was just, I mean, like I said, a normal-sized man, like normal dimension man that was stretched out to a 8-9 foot height.
Now, the other people that were there, were they Was there anything exceptional about them, or are they just normal people?
They're normal people, except for the fact that we were all glowing, but there was no interaction. And I noticed that this kind of freaked me out, though. When I was going into the official building there at the end, people were going in and out, just thousands of them through a normal, 2-door entry, and they never ran into one another. It was like you could just move through each other.
Now, when you say that you were glowing, explain that.
I would say they were not only blissful emotionally, but they were physically emitting a low form of light. I don't know if it was reflection from the perfect, enormous sun, or if they themselves actually emitted light, but you could tell they were happier than they've ever been before, and that they were actually glowing. When you looked at them, they were glowing. It was like an aura around them.
So, I'll tell you a couple things that kind of strike me about that. First thing, there are different types of near-death experiences that I am aware of. And not all of them are positive. Some people, and you get a lot of reports of the positive near-death experiences because, hey, why not? Who wouldn't want to tell people about that? Among the people that you feel comfortable telling that to. But there are also negative near-death experiences. People that experience a completely 180 degrees. That they feel like they're in hell, that they're being ripped apart, that they feel this lack of connection to anything. Loneliest experience that they've ever had. But the people that have had the positive near-death experiences, almost all of them have expressed what you expressed, which was that while they were there in this other realm, if you want to say that while they were in heaven, or they were having this celestial experience, as we call it, that the concerns of this world, they weren't concerned about it. That all of that stuff was left behind. And that when they came back, there was no yearning to come back. Now, some of them, occasionally, have said that they were given a choice. But most of them, kind of like what you were explaining, have said that they were just basically kicked out. They got the bum rush that, that they're not ready, it's not their time, that kind of stuff. But when they came back, they all said that they had this feeling of loss. That they didn't want to come back. That wherever they were, what they were experiencing, they wanted to experience forever. And that kind of strikes me as being really similar to what you just described.
I would agree.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't think about anything that back here. And I didn't want to come back here. And I remember him leaning forward to hit me with that hand, and I couldn't say anything because it happened so fast. But in my mind, I was like, wait. And he had already touched me, and I was gone. But I guess for lack of better, I don't want to say that I felt connected to everything around me. It was more than that. Everything around me, including myself, was connected to that glowing sun.
Now, I'll tell you, was it like a giant fireball, or was it like the sun? Like
It
the
was like the sun, just like it was exaggerated though, like it was 10 times bigger than normal, and it was beautiful, and you could look at it
without hurting your eyes.
without hurting your eyes. But I knew that everything around, everything, even the dirt on the ground, was connected to it.
Man.
And I noticed none of the people were interacting with each other. They weren't interacting with me. It's like we could physically see we were there, but we couldn't actually like physically communicate, or we didn't feel a need to. But I knew where all of the trees were. I knew when I heard a bird singing, I knew exactly where it was at. I could look up in the tree and know which one was singing.
Wow.
Everything there was there, connected, like a big network.
Now, the other thing I was going to tell you that strikes me about this, obviously, this is from a Christian worldview, which in the United States, most people are familiar with. I think, even if if you're Christian or not Christian, I mean, I think you're familiar with it. Most people here in the West, there are, or I've heard that certain religious figures describe what happens when everyone gets redeemed, or everyone that's going to get redeemed does get redeemed. The idea being that we're going to be given new bodies, right? That the idea being that the bodies that we have are these corrupted bodies of flesh, right? And so what's going to happen is that we're going to be given new bodies of spirit. Like we're going to become completely spirit. Now, I don't know if it says this in the Bible because, I don't know. I haven't actually looked at it. But the people that describe this basically say that the new spiritual bodies are going to be bodies of light. That the light is going to reflect from us. Now, what you described was people glowing, but you don't know where the glow is coming from.
Right.
So, do you think what you saw would be consistent with a bunch of people in their new spiritual bodies, or is that off the mark?
I think it could be.
Possible.
Could be possible. I know I've read stories of near-death experiences where people always claim that they saw relatives. I didn't see relatives. I didn't recognize any of the faces I saw. They were all new people, and there were millions of them.
Well,
But they were all glowing. And again, I can't tell if they were emitting light or reflecting light.
man. I guess. Oh, from one perspective. Well, first of all, congratulations, you didn't die.
Thank you.
I'm sure we can all be happy about that. So, hey, well done. Good job. I think it's kind of freaky that you could have just died, right? Like, I mean, does that freak you out?
No, I don't think about it as much anymore. I've been close a couple of times.
Okay. But those times that you were close, nothing like that happened.
Not that I recall.
Okay. Now, I guess the good news is that if you did glimpse heaven, there's millions of people there. So I guess certain sects of Christianity would be wrong. Just putting that out there. Now, you mentioned, though, that some of the other visions that you have, like with the other vision that you described, the memory kind of fades. So you got up before in the other vision, you got up, your hands were shaking, all this kind of stuff, and you started to write this stuff down because the memory would start to fade. Did that happen with this one?
No.
It didn't.
No, the second I woke up, the only thing I felt was, like I told you, I felt cheated. I felt remorse that I was here.
Man.
And it was like you went to Disneyland and fell asleep and woke up in the hotel room later, and you're like, wait a minute. I didn't get to ride this ride. I didn't get to do this. That's the feeling I had.
Gotcha. Well, obviously, you have an amazing set of experiences. And I'm sure there's a lot more things that we could talk about. And frankly, if you're willing to come back and do this again, we will. Because there's things I want to ask you about, like, we're not going to get into it right now. Well, okay. Have you ever experienced missing time? Like,
yes.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Because
but for how long?
I mean, does it matter? I mean,
I kind of think that everyone could miss, 4 or 5 minutes at a time and your brain just shut off. But I mean, I've missed hours.
Oh man. Okay, look. Missing time, right, is like a classic hallmark of alien abduction. Of the alien abduction phenomenon. But we're not going to get into that right now because I've had you for almost 2 hours and 20 minutes with no breaks. We haven't broke for music, bathroom break, nothing. This has been almost 2 hours and 20 minutes of, frankly, amazing experiences. So, if you're willing, we can do another show sometime and get into some of this other stuff. And I would love to do it. I think it'd be great. And my future co-host, Melissa the Great, would be here for it. I'm sure she has some questions that she would love to answer for you, or ask you.
I'd probably bring my notes on next time. We could get a little more in depth and do, episode by episode instead of just shotgunning it all out there at once.
Yeah, that would be great.
That's kind of what you were thinking.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think that people would really enjoy hearing that. And I also think that the community of listeners that we do have, which, right now is small, but we do have them. And I know because I get y'all's messages about when's the next show. And you guys, and I appreciate it. I love you guys showing me the love. I do. And, but just keep in mind that this is something I do because I like to right now. This does not pay the bills. And so I do this because I think that there's really interesting stories that people have. And there's future shows that we've got, that we've got to get some people lined up for. But we've got things lined up and we're going to get that stuff out there for you guys and girls. And, so, it have to do with remote viewing, American pyramids. There's a haunted bar in Oklahoma City, which I know that Constantine is familiar with, but we won't get into that. So a lot of that stuff is coming. It just needs you guys to be patient, and we'll start putting out shows on a more regular basis. Part of this is why Melissa's coming on to try to help me with this stuff, so I don't have to do everything on my own. So the webpage, the Facebook page, the Twitter page, the YouTube thing, all that stuff that I set up on my own and the various technical glitches I deal with, which Constantine was more than gracious of working through with me, because there were many, and I got a little bit short, but it wasn't directed at him. I was just pissed. It's just like, man, I was cussing up a storm. I'm just gonna tell you, it was classic. But suffice to say, I appreciate you spending the time with me.
Oh, I appreciate you listening. Give me an opportunity to tell you my story. I don't think it's necessarily a blessing. I view it more as a curse, but sometimes it helps to talk about it and let other people chime in. Maybe together we can figure it out.
I like it. So again, Constantine, I appreciate it. Dear wonderful listeners, I appreciate you. And again, like, share. You can subscribe to the updates. You can subscribe to the show from the webpage, thebigbow.com. We're also on iTunes, and easiest way to get there is follow the links on the show page at thebigbow.com. Also, we're on Twitter, The Real Big Bow. The link for that is also on the webpage. You can download the episodes. You can stream the episodes from the show page. So I appreciate it. I hope if you guys like it, please subscribe and share the show. Let everybody know that you listen to it and that you like the content. And if you didn't, that's fine too. Let me know what you thought. And if you didn't like it, let me know what you didn't like. And we'll try to get better from there. So, signing out. This is The Big Bow. And everybody have a wonderful day.